Hello, and thank you for listening to RENEWables, a podcast by BioStar, which aims to explore the current and future energy landscape in America.
Hey everyone, welcome back to RENEWables. Happy Friday, and thank you for joining us again. We have just finished our four-part series focusing on our renewable natural gas and organic fertilizer business. It was a blast to record and have some internal folks from our team on the show. So thanks to everyone who made that possible. Very excited to have David Crist from NFI Industries on today. NFI Industries is a transportation, logistics, real estate company, but really you all are more than that. I think you're borderline, a tech company with all the initiatives that you've taken on and some of the things that you're doing. So really excited to dive into that. David, thank you for coming on the show today.
And David, thanks for having me. I'm excited
Yeah,
to talk today.
and great name. That makes it easy. So, you are the Energy and Sustainability Manager at NFI. And I want to talk about all the different initiatives that you have going. You're working on some really cool things around electric vehicles and more. But before we get in there, set the stage for our listeners and viewers. Tell us a little bit about your background and experience and how you ended up at NFI.
No, and again, thanks for having me on here. I'm excited and really like your podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I went to school at Penn State University. Um, uh, Probably I graduated 10 years ago. It's sad to say, around 10 years ago now. And I graduated with a bachelor's degree in energy engineering. And energy engineering at the time was actually a new degree, and it focuses on energy efficient applications and just conventional and renewable energy. And it really had a. I was really excited to go to it and graduate from this program. And from there, I actually went to work for Train in King of Prussia. And so affiliates, their affiliate from King of Prussia is purely, it's a HVAC company, but they also had a energy division. And within that company, I actually sat in the sustainability center, and my job was to focus on optimizing HVAC and building up efficiency in commercial buildings, hospitals, schools. And
Fantastic.
it was a good experience because it got me into the HVAC industry, which I didn't know too much about. And
Sure.
I have my basis on that now. And so from Train, I went to work for CubeSmart, and CubeSmart's a publicly traded self-storage REIT out of Malvern, Pennsylvania. And there, I was the energy and sustainability manager. And they're in over 30 states in the U.S. and just a lot of different markets for energy. And right there, I got to develop solar, do rooftop solar for them. It's very interesting with the being a REIT. It's with the taxes and how that works, and using a taxable REIT subsidiary to own solar and have that work with a publicly traded REIT. It's very interesting. It's a very interesting those are very interesting solar projects, and that was some very good experience. But at CubeSmart, a couple of things I focus on were not only the solar, but energy efficient projects like lighting, HVAC upgrades, electric and gas commodity purchasing. That was my first kind of foot in the door on that industry, which is very interesting. And I also manage the HVAC building management systems for them. So that was just a kind of a small, simple HVAC system, but it would control the HVAC and lighting in certain areas, and usually where our cooling much higher than normal. So from there, actually, I moved on to NFI, and that's where I'm at now. And NFI is one of the largest third-party logistics companies in the U.S. And we specialize in supply chain solutions in the U.S. and Canada. And so now I'm the energy and sustainability manager at NFI. And we're a family-owned company. We're private, and it's been very exciting to work here. I've been here about 4 years now, and NFI is out of Camden, New Jersey, so we're right across the river from Philadelphia, and we mainly operate in our main markets are Southern California, Illinois, Lehigh Valley, New Jersey, and then Texas, and we move product for a lot of companies that you see every day. And one of our besides our third-party logistics operations, we also have a large truck fleet. And I sit in the real estate department. So within that operations that we operate over 52 million square feet of warehouse space in the US and Canada. And about 25% of that we own ourselves. And so I sit there and we manage our leases, we manage our own properties, we manage everything. And it's been a whirlwind 4 years. I can't believe it already.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you have a lot of responsibility and sort of bridging the gap between that real estate and that energy side, which are two, obviously related to one another. And I can imagine you mentioned NFI is a family-owned business and one of the largest 3PL companies in the country. But I can imagine there's some differences in how you go through processes and achieve projects than, say, CubeSmart, a publicly traded REIT. Talk a little bit about some of the differences in your role, even though you have a really similar role kind of to what you were doing at CubeSmart, but the differences between working for that publicly traded REIT, really big company, to also a big company, but a privately held family business, because I think that's a really interesting topic.
It is. It's very interesting to talk about. So NFI being a privately family-owned company, like you said, and as large as we are, we're over 12,000 employees now. So
wow,
much bigger than you would expect because I sit in the corporate office, and we have about 500 people in our corporate office, and it still feels like it's run like a small company. That's kind of why it's very unique.
nice.
I talk to the owners about almost every day, and they sit, their offices are 20, 30 feet from me. And maybe I have a unique experience. I think I do, because I sit in real estate and we report up to one of the owners, but it's very interesting because you can walk in their office and just talk about something right away, like today, and just say, hey, I want to talk about this, and it's great. It's a great place to work. CubeSmart was a great place to work too. You're right, it was definitely a different situation with the public company and getting things approved and making sure budgets were aligned and how that worked with Wall Street, and I didn't see much of that, but it's much different on getting energy efficient projects done and how getting those scheduled for this year or next year. It's a much different process.
Yeah, and so I can imagine you alluded earlier to some of the, it sounds like, challenges. I think you used a different word. I think you used interesting, but there's challenges around structuring those solar projects, right? With those big REITs and all the tax sort of rules that come with that. So it sounds like you got a little bit of an education in financial structuring too, which has probably helped you. And so talk about kind of, I think it's really neat. You say it still feels like working at a small company. talk about sort of that entrepreneurship and that entrepreneurship feel that NFI really promotes, and how that has sort of enabled you to go out and do things that, maybe not everybody else is looking at.
Right. Yeah, it's there's every day is a new day. There's a lot of different things that I have a schedule of things to do, and I'm sure, like most people, I don't get to them because there's always something new happening. And the great thing, yeah, one of our core things at NFI is entrepreneurship, and which means, if you have a good idea, you come to the table and pitch it, and everybody will discuss it, and then we'll get it done. If it makes sense and you're confident about it and you want to do it and you're passionate about it, they'll okay it, which is great. And there's been a lot of that with my job in general. Just with I've been trying to expand our solar portfolio, so we have about 6 megawatts of solar in South Jersey, and I've been trying to expand it in New Jersey, future in Pennsylvania, Illinois, California, and any new solar markets where we've got big portion of our portfolio in those regions. And it's been exciting. We've been trying to do rooftop solar and direct, wholly own those systems, but we also have been trying to participate in the community solar program in New Jersey, which I'm very excited about. It's a great program. And we're actually we're getting very involved with that and trying to get, like I said, we're trying to be involved with it, and it's a great program for the state. And I think if you look at solar, I think community solar is the future. You can see a lot of states are either have implemented those programs, or are talking about it currently, and they want to expand their discussion on it and implement some sort of community solar program. And so I'm excited that we can be involved with those programs in the states that we operate in and we have our buildings in.
Yeah, the community solar thing's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that. And for some of our listeners and viewers who aren't as in the weeds on the energy side of things or in the solar business, there are certain states that'll allow you to develop a large solar array, whether it be roof mounted or out in a field somewhere, interconnect that to the grid, and then actually pick customers around, typically within that same utility, who can subscribe to that energy, that renewable power that you're generating. And BioStar is actually super excited to have submitted an application into the Year 2 Community Solar Program in New Jersey. We have a project we've been developing that we're really, really excited about. And it's a very competitive program, so we're confident, but understand that there's a lot of competition and a lot of folks who want to get into that program. And it's one of the reasons, David, that I like staying in touch with you. Obviously, there may or may not be business opportunities for us to work together, but it's really interesting to hear, from your perspective, with a focus on real estate, kind of which programs around the country are interesting to you, and what you all are paying attention to and investigating, because that's really a full-time job. I mean, at BioStar, we have basically dedicated person who all they really do is try to understand pending and future and current state legislation that's allowing for easier adoption of renewables. So I'm sure that takes up a lot of your time. And I wanted to get a little bit into kind of some of your, what's worked and what hasn't worked with respect to solar. But then I want to get into EVs, because you all have, over the last few years, been really forward thinking with respect to EVs, and kind of run some experiments around EV fleets. And I think that's something that's going to be hugely important in the coming years. So touch really quickly on some of your successes and failures, if you don't mind, because we like to talk about what didn't work as well in the solar space, and then we'll kind of shift into EVs.
So I find that I'm a good, easy internal resource for de- development and just trying to figure out, hey, we're building a building here. Can we do solar? Oh, what's the solar market like that? What's the solar market like in this area? We're definitely expanding in this region. What's the solar? Can we do solar? What do we have to do
Sure.
with the roof? So being an internal resource for solar has really helped our real estate team. And with that, like you said, solar is not not everything's pie in the sky for solar development for sure. I've definitely hit a couple snags lately. The big thing for solar for us and for I think a lot of people that are investing in are the rebates. And where we are, if there's good rebates, we're going to do solar. It makes sense. You've got the federal tax rebate, you've got any sort of state rebate, and uh, in the Northeast, there's a lot of high electric rates, so your return's even easier
Sure.
to make out in the financial model. So we're really excited about solar in those areas and where we're at and where those incentives are. The only issue we've had lately is grid congestion. So we've done
Yep.
the back work, we've got projects, we've got proposals, we've signed letter of intent, we've applied for interconnection, and lately we've been getting denied. And that's one of the
Interesting.
issues I've been seeing lately, is specifically in New Jersey. We've had issues trying to get on the grid in with certain substations in certain areas where we're located, where the grid just can't handle any more solar. And it's unfortunate because those states, they have renewable portfolio standards that they have to meet, and they have goals in 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years of being 50% renewable or 100% renewable. And the issue is that there's just the grid kind of can't really handle it in certain areas, and it's unfortunate, but that's what we're hitting. Hitting those walls right now.
Yeah. And not just in New Jersey. You're not alone in New Jersey, by the way. There's issues all around the country, and New Jersey's interesting because it's not that big of a state, but their state incentives have driven a ton of solar adoption. And so we run into that all the time where customers want to do something, want to do it because it's the right thing to do, want to do it because the economics make sense, and then they can't do it. And so that can be frustrating and certainly takes perseverance. And so just roughly how many, I think you mentioned earlier, but I want to just say for our viewers and listeners, this is not a company who has been sitting on their hands. You all have been really active. How many megawatts roughly do you all have kind of on your real estate portfolio currently?
So we own over 6 megawatts
Yep.
currently. But
Nice.
we've actually owned those. They're we're coming up on 10, 11 years, so we've owned them for a long time.
Awesome. And are those mostly in New Jersey?
Yes, just South Jersey. They were they were back when SRECs were $500, $600 an SREC.
Right.
They were kind of built, and the great thing about the SREC, though, besides that, it's unfortunate it's not as high as it used to be, but it's been very flat lately. It hasn't been as volatile as it's been in the past.
Sure.
And I think that's given a lot of people confidence in investing in solar in New Jersey compared to 8, 10 years ago.
Sure. And SREC for our viewers and listeners is State Renewable Energy Credit, and every solar system creates a certain amount of power, and there's a certain amount of SRECs that come with that. And so the end user of the solar can actually retire those RECs, we call them, renewable energy credits, or more commonly in New Jersey, because the value of them is so high, you can actually sell those RECs into a market and then do what's called a REC swap, where because you still might want to retire some credits and take the environmental benefits, and tout those. You might swap your New Jersey solar RECs, which are worth a couple to $300 per REC, and swap them with some Texas wind RECs that are a lot cheaper. So you're still getting the environmental benefit, but you're helping create a better return on your investment with respect to the solar field. So let's shift gears a little bit. Let's hop across the country and go to California, where you all are doing some really, really neat things. We're actually looking at a couple little projects with you right now, but really excited about what you're doing with respect to EV fleets. And you seem to be, as far as I can tell, really one of the early adopters. Talk about your progress in transitioning your fleet to electric, how that's going, and what you're excited about in the future.
Yeah, this is the fun stuff, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we have our largest market is definitely Southern California. Biggest concentration being the Inland Empire in Ontario, Chino area, and what our focus there is. The ports of LA and Long Beach have discussed the future of the port being zero emission vehicles going in and out of that port. And we wanted to jump on this, that mission as quick as possible, since we're a big player in that area. And we have a big impact with our fleet and our business and just in general down in Southern California. So we wanted to be in the forefront of these initiatives. And so right now, I guess if we jump right into it, we have two sites today active. So one site is just an EV truck project where we replace diesel trucks with a full electric truck. And then we have another project where we're completely electrifying a site, making everything on the site electric. And that may seem easy, but it really isn't. A lot of work goes into it. I think if everybody just says, "Oh, electrification and California," it's like, well, isn't everything electric already? Well, no, it's not. And so, if you want, what do you want to start with the existing?
Well, go into that a little bit further. We'll go back to the trucks and the fleet, but go into that a little bit further. When you say the electrification of a building, besides maybe the trucks coming in and out, like what else are you referring to there? Dig into that a little bit for our viewers.
Yeah, so our main business, like we talked about before, is warehouse operations, third-party logistics, where we move products for a client. And in California, we don't have, it's Southern California, so we don't have gas to heat our buildings. Usually everything's electric inside the actual building envelope. And besides that, in the warehouse, there's forklifts, right? And a lot of forklifts are propane today. And what we're doing is we're substituting those propane forklifts with a lithium ion forklift to try to see how that works and literally, electrify that portion of our business inside the warehouse. And outside the warehouse, we have we call them yard horses or yard tractors, where they just pull containers and trailers around in the yard constantly. And those are always, usually always diesel. And we've replaced those yard tractors in this space with a full EV yard tractor.
Okay, interesting.
Which was big because those things run pretty much 24/7. So diesel emissions, everything from that is completely gone now. Yeah, so to finish out the electrification, so you have electrification inside, we're replacing propane forklifts with lithium ion forklifts, replacing a diesel yard tractor with a full EV yard tractor, and then replacing a full diesel or natural gas tractor in the yard with a full EV truck. And so those are full electric Class 8 heavy duty trucks. And so you have the trucks, the tractors, and the forklifts. Everything's electrified. We'll be putting in solar at the site as well. So we're going to be trying to, we're electrifying everything and we're making it as green as possible.
Sure. That's really interesting. And how has it been, from an operating cost standpoint? You're talking about, obviously more stuff that you're plugging in. And so, how has it been kind of working with the utilities out there and making sure that your operating costs don't skyrocket, as a result of this electrification of your various equipment?
So that's what makes or breaks this, really, in my opinion, because the operating cost is kind of the last thing. Everything else is building up, right? The cost of the equipment, cost of the infrastructure, getting everything ready for the day-to-day operations, and then once you hit the switch and everything's running, the operating cost is trying to compare that to what you're doing today with diesel and natural gas, but also trying to figure out how you manage that, because it's another monster, right? Because before it was you purchase diesel, you put in diesel in the truck, you drive, right? Now it's okay. Well, I'm on peak from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. in Southern California. So I'm going to try to avoid and try to start charging at 9:01 p.m. and make sure that everything's not charging on peak. And if you can do that, that's great, because your costs are dramatically lower,
Sure.
especially in the summertime. In the wintertime, it's not as bad in Southern California, but the summertime, it's a big difference in rate, in the time of use rates.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And it certainly obviously impacts your operations. And to a certain extent, you may want to wait till 9:01, but you might have a dead forklift that just needs to be charged. And so does the utility offer any special rates for these types of technologies and this type of charging?
Yeah, so we had very good timing on our first project. They had about, I think, around EV1 to EV6, and right when we came on with our first project, they actually activated 3 new rates: EV7, 8, and 9. So for our one project, we sit on EV9 rate, which is KW of 500 or higher. And the great thing about that rate, and it probably will not be around forever, is there is no demand charge.
Okay.
You pay a high per kWh charge on your on peak time TOU rate, but there is no demand rate. There's a pretty hefty fixed what do you call it? Facilities charge, I think they call it. Without that demand rate, it makes it great. And Southern Cal Edison has been very helpful in these projects, and they've been great. And this rate really makes these. And I think the rate's designed to get these projects up and running, to see how they work and how they'll work.
Sure.
It's been very good for us.
Yeah, it's great to see the utility kind of stepping in and making this feasible for their customers. So you also have a renewable natural gas fleet of trucks, is that right? And talk a little bit about kind of the differences between the RNG and the EV fleets, and going forward, do you see that it's a combination of both, or do you see one becoming more important than the other?
Yeah, we have a small fleet of several natural gas trucks in Southern California, and I don't know as much about them. I do know that I see the future, especially in California. The future is electric trucks. For us, we've had success, and I really don't see I don't see the need for the natural gas trucks in the future, because we're going to be expanding our EV fleet. So I think they're going to be pushed out for ourselves, but also our business is more regional. It's more quick trips and shorter trips. So for companies that have long hauls or longer trips, I don't know what they're envisioning, but for us, I think, we've had success with EVs and we want to expand it to our entire fleet in California. And so I think that kind of gives you the answer, right? That
Sure. Yeah, no, you're looking at the EVs, and I think everybody is. It's certainly, if you watch the stock market in the last couple of months, it's like anytime a car maker mentions EVs, their stock jumps. And so it definitely seems to be the future. But you mentioned something that's interesting and about how you have kind of quicker trips or lanes or laps. I've heard it, these different routes called a lot of different things. So just for your EV fleet in California, as an example, what is a typical trip, and kind of what's the range on those electric trucks? And then how does, sort of like you mentioned with the forklifts, how does the charging kind of play into strategically how you ultimately make your deliveries and everything like that?
so our tractors that we have are prototypes. So I think when they're going to market, as technology gets better, you're gonna have hopefully lighter weight and more efficient batteries and longer distances. And so
Sure.
our prototypes, I think they said 250 miles.
Okay.
We took that as 200, just to be safe.
Sure.
Our round trip so our main business, and the reason why the business that we wanted to do this project with was our drayage fleet, our drayage operations. So drayage is when you bring a trailer from the port to one of our warehouses. And so
Got it.
that a round trip for us is about 110 miles.
Mhm.
And that's perfect for us, right? If we're expecting 200-mile range or 250, we can almost get 2 trips out of that. And so with this project, actually, what we did was replace 5 diesel tractors with 10 EV tractors. Now that doesn't seem efficient, but also this is a pilot project, right? You don't know what to expect. So that the idea was, instead of 5 diesel tractors, you have 5 EV tractors run to the port while the other 5 are charging. And then while those 5 come back, the other 5 are ready. You bring them in, you unplug the one, plug the other one in. So we actually have 2 spots at each charger.
Got it. Okay.
And then once they're done, you bring the next tractor all the way down the port, and you just keep going back and forth.
Sure. That's really interesting. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see, sort of, as these bigger trucks. I know Tesla's coming out with an EV semi, and there's other, companies who are obviously looking at this and developing projects, but it'll be interesting to see how that battery range really impacts adoption in various markets, across the country. And well, I think another thing that's really interesting that I hadn't thought a ton about is, are these utilities going to have to step up and play ball with different rate classes for charging these vehicles? Because I can see where a logistics company would avoid switching over to an electric fleet, knowing that they're going to have to charge their batteries probably during peak hours and that their operating costs might go up. So there's a lot of different factors at play, and big kudos to NFI for kind of diving in head first and really being an industry leader here with a pilot program to try to figure all this stuff out. I think it's absolutely fascinating. Talk a little bit about, as we sort of start to wrap up here, what are you most excited about kind of over the next decade? I know you look at a lot of different types of projects, from solar to EVs to natural gas to, HVAC and lighting. What are you most excited about for NFI and in your role, kind of looking at the next decade and some of the things you're working on?
Well, it's an exciting time, and it's an exciting company to work for. And I don't think people realize what our business is and how, I guess, big it is right now. With e-commerce, especially this last year, e-commerce is becoming one of the biggest new things, I think. And you probably see warehouses everywhere just being built.
Yeah, all over the place. It's amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter really. It's everywhere. And um, uh, the great thing, well, the future that I see here is that if we go really into energy sustainability, we're we're a lot of our customers' scope 3 emissions. And
Hmm.
yeah, that's great. I'm excited that NFI is becoming more green. We're having a more green fleet. We have we're fully EV trucks in our fleet now. We're getting lithium ion track forklifts in the warehouses. So we're becoming more green inside the warehouse. We're becoming more green outside the warehouse, and that's just us. But really, I like our impact because a lot of our customers and our clients are publicly traded. They're big companies. They're trying to figure out how to reduce their scope 3 emissions, which is one of those factors. One of those contributors is supply chain, and we're part of their supply chain. And so I'm really excited about our scope 1 emissions and reducing our customers' scope 3 emissions, and helping and building on those relationships and helping them help them get to their goals and achieve their goals on reducing emissions.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, it's something that you're starting to hear a lot more buzz about, particularly in the last year or two. Hey, you doing good isn't just enough. You need to look at your supply chain. You need to look at, what is everyone else in your supply chain doing, and making sure that you're addressing things, at every level. And so you're seeing Walmart roll out some really amazing initiatives. I think it's the Gigaton project that they rolled out with all of their vendors and suppliers. You're seeing folks like Larry Fink at BlackRock, saying that we're going to divest in traditional forms of energy. And so I think you bring up a really good point. It's not just what am I doing and is that enough, but what is my supply chain doing, and how does every different step in the process ultimately affect emissions. So I think you all are doing an unbelievable job, really leading the charge in your industry, and have a lot to be proud of. But I'm really excited to see what you do kind of in the next 10 years, because there's still a lot of work to be done, and it sounds like you all recognize that. We're going to kind of wrap it up here, but I want to make sure folks know how to find you, David, online. Are you a LinkedIn guy, Twitter guy? If anybody wants to get in touch with you and talk more about any of these topics or your business, please make sure they know how to do that.
Yeah, for work, I'm a big LinkedIn guy. I think it's a great platform to converse with other people in the industry, and just that's probably the easiest way, and I like that way better.
Sure. If you want to connect with David, find him on LinkedIn and follow NFI Industries. Their company posts a lot of updates about what they're up to, and a fascinating business to follow. I'm really excited to see what comes in the next couple of years, and I hope that you'll come back on the show and tell us how things are going.
Yeah, that sounds great. No, I appreciate the time, and I'm excited for us, but I'm excited for just the industry as a whole.
Likewise. Thank you very much for your time today. David Crist with NFI Industries, the Sustainability and Energy Manager. You can find him on LinkedIn, connect with him if you want to chat anymore, or make sure to follow NFI Industries on that platform as well and keep up with them. Thanks again, David. This has been another episode of RENEWables. Stay in touch. Make sure to give us a follow. We are releasing episodes almost every Friday, so please stay tuned, and we really appreciate your listenership and viewership. Thanks again. Have a great weekend, everybody.